Hello fellow developers, this is Vishnu from Stack Reboot, and in this coding series we are going to be building a simple weather application using React and Tailwind CSS. So firstly I'll give you a demo of the application which we'll be building. So this is the application we'll be building in the entire series. If I go ahead and refresh the page, as you can see in the initial render, the application fetches the information from the metaweather API. So this is the API which we'll be using, and you can go ahead and check it out. So we'll be fetching weather from the metaweather API, and then we'll be displaying it as such. And you can also search for places right here. So if I go ahead and search for London, as you can see, this again does the same. It again communicates with the metaweather API and then fetches the weather information with respect to that particular city and renders here. So this is as far the demo concerns. As I already said, we'll be using React for the front end, and as far as the styling concerns, we'll be using Tailwind CSS. So if you are new to Tailwind CSS, then we'll be discussing Tailwind CSS as we progress through our coding tutorial, and I encourage you to take a look at Tailwind CSS because it is an awesome piece of framework, and it is an utility first CSS framework. As you can see, it is a bit different from normal CSS frameworks like Bootstrap or Material UI, because Bootstrap or Material UI, they provide us the components. For example, if you take a look at the Material UI, they directly provide these components. For suppose, if you want a button in our application, you can directly go ahead and search for button in the Material UI, and you can pick the button you want. You can just directly import this button in your React application. But the way Tailwind CSS works is pretty different, because they don't provide any pre-built components, but they give utility classes which we can use throughout our project. So let's just say if you want to give a padding of 6 to a division, then we simply specify P6. So they provide these pre-built utility classes which we can directly give as an inline CSS to the elements. So that's what the beauty regarding Tailwind CSS is, and we'll be using Tailwind CSS for styling and React for the front end part. So if you are a bit new to React, then I'll be giving a small introduction to React and why are we using React in the first place. As you can see, React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Well, in a nutshell, React is a front-end library which we use to build the front end or the UI portion of our website. As far as the features are concerned, there are loads and loads of features of React which makes it stand out from all other libraries in the market, and we'll be discussing the features as we progress throughout the tutorial. If you are pretty much new to React, there is one feature of React that you should master. Then that is React is component based. So what do I mean by that? If you take this site as an example, everything you see in this particular site is a component itself. For example, if you take this header is a component itself, and this get started button can be considered as a component. So if I create a button, I can use this button as many times I want in the entire application. So that means these components are being reused in the entire application as many times I want. So these components are also termed as reusable components. So as React provides reusable components, we don't need to write code for each and every component in the entire application, so that we'll be not repeating ourselves in the coding part. And as you can see, each and every React website is nothing but merging all the components together and rendering the whole website. So that's a brief intro of React, and we'll be using React hooks and functional components for building the application. So now we'll quickly go ahead and scrape out a simple React application. So to create a boilerplate weather application, just click on the Get Started menu and then go to the Create New React App. And as you can see here, to create a new React application, we need to execute npx create React app and the name of our application. So I'll be firing up a terminal right here and just navigate to the folder where you want to create the project, and I'll be making a directory named weather application, and then I'll change my directory to weather application. And now I'll be executing the command npx create React app, and let's just name it as weather app. You can name it as you wish, but if you give npx create React app and the name of the application as such, so this creates a folder named weather app inside the weather application. If you want to directly create an app in this folder, then you can simply give npx create weather app and /. So this stands for the current directory, and I'm using a flag called use npm, and you don't need to use it as my system contains both yarn and npm. I'll be specifying the create React app to use node package manager. So I'll go ahead and install it. So I'll go ahead and run the command, and as you can see, this installs React, React DOM and React scripts. So this creates a boiler template for our React project. And if you are pretty new to npm, I'll give you a brief demo of what is npm and how do we install any packages or libraries from the npm library. So if you go ahead and open npm.js, and as you can see, npm is a package manager. So npm stands for node package manager. And for suppose if you want to install any package from the npm registry, so what we do is we search for the package and then we'll just go ahead and install using this command. As you can see here, in order to install Mongoose, we need to execute npm I, and I stands for install and the name of the package or the library which you want to install. And for suppose if you want to install create React app, you can simply search for the create React app, and then to install create React app, we need to execute npm I and create React app. And here's the catch: to install create React app, we need to execute this command, but as you can see in the React documentation, they are asking us to run npx instead of npm. So what do you mean by npx? So npx stands for node package execute. So what it does is, every time you run npx create React app and the name of your application, this fetches the latest version of the create React app from the npm.js registry. As you can see, the latest version is 4.0.1. This fetches the latest version from the npm registry and creates the basic React application for us. Instead of we installing create React app locally on our machine, we just execute npx create React app and the name of the application, and it automatically fetches the latest version of create React app in the npm registry and creates a boiler template for our React project. And this is recommended by the create React app team, so we'll be using npx only. And if we go ahead and check the terminal, as you can see, this created a basic React project for us. You can simply go ahead, type the command ls, and as you can see, this created a bunch of files for us. So now we'll quickly go ahead and open it in VS Code. So this is the basic directory structure that create React app creates for us. And as you can see here in the node modules directory, this contains all the modules that we need to execute our React application. If we install any other external library from npm it gets added to this node modules directory. And if we go ahead and check the public folder, there are a couple of static files, the logo.png, favicon.ico, and then open the index.html. As you can see here, this is a basic HTML page, and there is one thing that you need to take a note of here, and that is there is a division with an id root in the body. So we'll be coming back here again. We'll go ahead to the source directory. As you can see, inside the source, this is where all our JavaScript files and CSS files live. There are a bunch of CSS files, JavaScript files, etc. And there is something called index.js. So if you take a look at index.js, and as you can see in the line number 11, we are referencing an element with an id root. And as I explained you earlier, inside the public folder in index.html, we have a division with an id root. So we are referencing this division inside this index.js and saying the React DOM to render the app component. So this app is being imported from /app. That means this app is imported from app.js inside the source directory. So everything this app component returns is being rendered and gets attached to the division present inside the index.html page. So that is the cycle of a React application. So anything you write in the app.js in more precise way, so anything this functional component returns is being executed and gets attached to the division present inside the index.html. And you can also create a new folder. Let's just name it as components. And if you create a file, name header.js, and create a functional component inside here. Let's just say hello from header. And if I go ahead and import it inside the app component, and let's just delete all the return statements, and then if I go ahead and execute render inside the app component, and if I start the application using npm start, this spins up a local development server in your machine. And as you can see here, it is being rendered on localhost and the port number is 3001. So localhost is also called as a loopback IP address, and it is being rendered here. As I said earlier, everything that functional component returns is being rendered and attached to the division present inside the index.html. So you can create new components and you can import them in the app.js, and you can simply insert them inside component. And that's everything regarding the source directory. And if we go ahead and open the package.json, so these are all the dependencies that our project needs. Whenever we need to run our application, we'll just install these dependencies and run using the start command. So this start executes React scripts. As I said earlier, this spins up a local development server and renders our application there. And this is everything you need to know regarding the package.json. In this step, we have successfully set up a basic React application. So now we'll be moving further and setting up Tailwind CSS for our project. So if you quickly go ahead and search for Tailwind CSS, and as you can see, if we click on the get started installation for the create React tab, and we need to execute these commands to set up Tailwind CSS for our project. So copy this command, then simply go ahead to your VS Code and open a terminal right here, and then execute these commands. Once that is done, install the Krakow. So while this is installing, if you take a look at the package.json which I shown you earlier, you can see once these packages are being installed, they are being added to the dependencies object inside the package.json. So as we installed post CSS, auto prefixer and Tailwind CSS, they get automatically added to the dependencies object inside the package.json. So now we have installed Krakow, and then we need to change the scripts inside the package.json. So open package.json, and here just select the React scripts portion of the first 3 commands and then rename them to Krakow. So this should look like this. For start it should be Krakow start, and for build it should be Krakow build, and for test it should be Krakow test. So once you have done this, you can go ahead to the next step, and as you can see we need to create a new krakow.config.js. So we will be creating a configurational file in the root of our project. So just create a new file and then copy everything that's present in here and then just paste it here. So that is what we need to do as far as the configuration file concerns. And then we need to initiate a Tailwind configuration file in our application. So if I go ahead and clear the terminal and execute Tailwind CSS init, this creates a Tailwind configuration file. So as you can see here, when we run the npx Tailwind CSS init throws an error saying cannot find the module auto prefixer. So to get rid of this error, we need to uninstall the Tailwind CSS, the post CSS and the auto prefixer which we installed earlier, and install the latest versions of them, and then we need to generate a Tailwind CSS configurational file. Then again uninstall the Tailwind CSS because here we install the latest version of the Tailwind CSS, and then finally we install the versions which are compatible with the Tailwind CSS. So as you can see, we need post CSS 7 and auto prefixer version 9. So first we uninstall these compatible versions, install the latest one, and then generate our Tailwind configuration file, and then finally download the versions which are compatible for our application. So you can follow these steps mentioned in this issue, and I'll be linking the page in the description. So as you can see here, this generates a Tailwind configurational file for us. And once you're done executing all these commands, and if you see in the project folder, this creates a Tailwind configurational file for us. And the next step to do is you need to include the Tailwind base, the Tailwind components, and the Tailwind utilities inside our index.css file. So if you open the source directory, you can find the index.css file and just simply delete everything that's present in the CSS file and copy them and paste it here. And then make sure you are importing the index.css file inside the index.js, because this is where we are saying the React DOM to render the app component. So to check whether Tailwind CSS is installed and configured correctly, just open app.js file and move to header, and let's just give h1 a class name of text to Excel and text blue 500. So if I go ahead and save the file, this hot reloads for us, and if you check the preview of the application, this gives the styling for our header. So that means Tailwind CSS is configured correctly for our application. So that's what for this video guys, and in the next video we'll be creating the left side portion of our application. Other than that, this is my first video in my YouTube channel, and if you really like the content, please do like and share. And if you have any doubts regarding the tutorial, then you can please drop a comment in the comment section and I'll get to you as soon as possible. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.